guys, it's Ariana. Welcome back to my channel. So for tonight's video, we're going to be reading some more scary stories. As per usual, I have my wicked candle in here, making the whole room smell like caramel apples. And I'm going to be reading a bunch of backwood, creepy wood stories. So I did post on my community tab asking you guys what kind of content you guys prefer, and a lot of you guys have mentioned that you prefer the true stories, the true paranormal stories over the fictional ones. I'm always going to do the fictional ones, but I know that you guys are leaning towards wanting the more true creepy stories. So I found a bunch in the backwoods creepy section and I'm going to read those in this video. So all of these stories that I'm going to be reading today are true stories. So the first one is from the Inner-Lab-123, and it is titled Faces in the Trees. I'd never been a big fan of camping. For some reason or another, my friend and I decided to take a Saturday night to camp on private property. We had permission from the owner. On a bank of a small lake in rural America, southeast. The lake wasn't very large, probably 150 yards at most across. It was more of a deep pond, but it was about 5 times as long as it was wide. And from the perspective of our camp, it consumed the majority of our sightline. The plot of land itself wasn't entirely removed from civilization. We were about 10 miles outside of a small suburb of a mid-sized southern city. It definitely was not easy to access. However, the only way in was through a gated, narrow dirt road across a levee which spanned one side of the lake. This road was gated and locked. The owner gave us the code and we pulled the car through and locked the gate behind us. If you've ever been down south, you know how quickly it gets isolated outside of cities. Our cities are small and the rural people around often live rough and wild. We have dense woods so thick that they're not worth building in unless you have more connections or attachments to the area. I've heard it was not probable to cut roads through a lot of it when they were building highways in the 50s. So not much development has happened in the last 100 years, and in some places, since the Civil War. It's not uncommon to go 30-minute drives straight out of town and come upon cabins that are obviously off the grid. My friend and I were used to living in the suburbs, so we were just happy to see stars and hear the sounds of nature. We were at our camp in a small Coleman 2-person tent and a blanket, simply looking around and enjoying the night, when suddenly, my friend sat straight up, real scared. He said something like, "Do you see that person over there?" He pointed to the other side of the lake. I didn't see anything, and I sat up slightly and told him that it was just the dark playing tricks on him. He seemed very shaken, and he told me to look again, that there was a bunch of faces behind the trees. This got my attention, and I sat up fully, rubbing my eyes to try to gain full focus. And that's when I saw them. Small, round faces staring back at me across the lake. Maybe 15 or 20 of them. All were positioned in such a way that their bodies were behind the trees, and only their heads were visible. The best way I can describe the faces was very pale and somehow internally illuminated children faces. I should mention that neither of us were drinking. We were way too young for that. We had eaten dinner at home and we were just planning on going to sleep after hanging out for a while. The faces weren't moving. We just kind of sat there in shock, thinking that our eyes would adjust and we would see that they were reflections of bugs or owls or something. But I would never come to that realization. I stared right back at them for what felt like 5 minutes, looked back at my friend, and then they were gone. Bodies of water carry sound extremely well, and we heard extensive shuffling from the other side of the lake and a couple of small branches snap. It's incredible what your ears pick up during an otherwise silent night. My buddy was tearing up a little when he said, "What the fuck was that?" And I didn't have an answer for him. Neither of us slept particularly well. I definitely felt validated in my feelings of disliking camping, but what were we going to do? I tried to do some research on the internet, but never found a phenomenon that can explain this. And that was their whole post, so that is really creepy. I don't know how you guys stayed there overnight. I would have left. That is so weird. I hate that so much. Thank you so much for allowing me to read your story, and let's move on to the next one. So the next one is again from the Backwoods Creepy section. It is from the Reddit author Naltsuna, and it's titled, Something Accidentally Made Its Presence Known to Me. Before I start, I want to acknowledge that it's likely was just a mountain lion. Either way, it's one of the scariest things that has ever happened to me in the woods. In early March of 2021, I was just barely recovering from a significant concussion, enough to where I could drive again. I still couldn't work for another few weeks, and I couldn't look at screens or even read. So I was spending plenty of time just going on short walks as such to pass time in ways that didn't aggravate my head. I went to a small trailhead I hadn't been to before. If it wasn't for the trees, I think houses about half a mile away or less would have been visible from the parking lot, so I wasn't exactly deep in the woods. I had a weird feeling I shouldn't go, but as always, I was armed and I figured I was just being silly, because it was a dreary, cloudy day with some chill and a slight breeze. I approached the trailhead feeling very strange, like I really shouldn't be there. I saw a single car in the parking area, and I figured that maybe since a previous car of mine had been broken into at a trailhead a few years previous, I was worried it would happen again, with my car being the only other one up there. I backed in and I hung out for a few minutes. Two guys with fishing poles came from the left where I couldn't very clearly hear a rushing river. They got in their car and they left, and my I shouldn't be here sense persist. Being an idiot, I still got out and I went up the trail. I had no idea how long it was or where it went, but I didn't really intend on going the full way unless it was short. I just wanted to walk for a while outside. The trees hadn't gotten their leaves back, and it was a dreary day, as I mentioned earlier, but that usually doesn't put me on edge. As I walked, the strong feeling to turn back got more and more obvious. I felt myself glancing all over literally constantly. It wasn't even fun anymore to be up there. It's only been a couple of minutes, and I mean the feeling of dread was so immediately strong, I could still see my car in the parking lot when I decided to turn around and go home, because it had gotten that strong so quickly. I turned around, hand on my pistol in its holster, and I stopped to listen. A few seconds after I turned around, I heard a big footstep off to my right. It was a big snap of a branch that had been on the ground already, maybe 30 yards away. I'm not sure if it matters that the branch was already on the ground. Other than that, I know it wasn't deadfall. I've been working in audio for way too long, and I can tell a lot about an event simply by how it sounds. That might sound silly, but it's important to know that I could 100% tell it was a footstep. And they had likely accidentally stepped on a branch that was already present on the forest floor. I waited a second or two after the big snap to head out. I looked over the place it'd come from, able to see what felt like a decent amount because of the lack of leaves on the trees, but I couldn't see anything that looked alive. Not wanting to trigger a pursuit instinct in whatever it was, I started walking down the trail. I had my sidearm in my hand, drawn at this point. My car wasn't far, and I'm naturally a fast walker, so this seems like the best course of action. I got back to my car in a minute, and I heard nothing at all besides the nearby river rushing by. Having backed into my spot, I started my car and I put it in drive, but had my foot on the brake. I wanted to see if anything came into sight, and then I would peel out of there. Nothing ever showed itself, not that I could see anyways. As I left the area, the dreadful feeling went away, and I had a normal rest of my day, but a little shaken up. I don't know what it was, and I don't want to make any claims. As I mentioned at the very beginning, it was probably a mountain lion, as this occurred near the Box Elder area of Utah, and they're often seen even coming down into the cities. So one still in the mountains but only half a mile from some fancy houses probably isn't very strange. Either way, a few things still strike me to this day. Number one, whatever it was clearly knew it had revealed itself when it stepped on the branch, and was smart enough to recognize I immediately looked in its general direction. The fact that something saw me notice its mistake, and that I still absolutely saw nothing and turn during the middle of the day still freaks me out. Mountain lions are notorious for their natural camouflage, so this theory tracks. Number two, the sense of dread before I even got to the trailhead. I felt this a few times, as you might see in my other posts, but even then, I didn't feel the same dread like I did here on this trail. I knew I was going to be in danger, and I ignored it, and then I knew there were eyes on me by something I couldn't see. That was instinctual knowledge, was confirmed when there was very clearly a large step taken among the trees to my right. I have a handful of stories similar to this that are also 100% real things that have happened to me, that I think I'll try to post one day. I keep running into similar situations because I keep going out when I have the sense I should not. Maybe someday I'll learn. And that was their whole post. So that one obviously wasn't paranormal, as they said it was probably an animal, but to have that instinctual feeling that you shouldn't be on the trailhead and then to go anyway is kind of silly. It's a very, very smart decision to listen to your gut feeling and your instincts, letting you know you're in danger. You should never put yourself in a situation where a mountain lion can literally eat you. But again, that could have been paranormal at the same time, because we have read a story recently where something very similar happened. People were walking on a trailhead and they both had the immediate sense of they were not welcome. They needed to turn back, and they never actually saw an animal or anything paranormal, but they had this really crazy feeling of we need to leave, we are in danger, and both of those people felt it at the same time. So being in the woods is definitely creepy. It's definitely full of animals, full of weird things, and you never know, it could be paranormal. So be very careful if you're going hiking in the woods, and make sure to be prepared to come across an animal or something of that nature. So the next one that I'm going to read is again from the Backwoods Creepy section. It is from the Reddit author healthy_south_2610, and it's titled Lost Time While Camping. This happened many years ago when I was about 10 or 11 years old. I wouldn't describe the area I was in as backwoods necessarily, but it was a wooden 100-acre ranch. The land is in the southwest part of the United States. My family owns the property, we have family reunions every year, and we all stay for about 5 days to camp. There's an area of the ranch where we all set up camp and cook and eat. Getting to that part of the ranch requires driving through a small village and several gates for about 2 miles. The first gate beyond the village is slightly past a set of railroad tracks. That's a lot of description, but it's relevant for the story. Because I had been camping at the ranch for as long as I could remember, and the land was private, my parents would allow me to go off on my own during the day as long as I didn't go very far. I'd spent time walking the property near their camp, looking for arrowheads or trying to catch tadpoles in the ponds. On this day, I left the large camp area after lunch, which was around 11:30, and I told my mom I was going to the nearby creek. I planned on catching some tadpoles to bring back to camp and be back on time for a swimming trip my cousins were planning. They wanted to go to a nearby river, and I really didn't want to miss it. I made it down to the creek and I got several tadpoles. I probably spent a total of maybe 15 minutes down there. To get back to camp, I would have needed to either climb up a relatively steep embankment with a lot of loose rock or circle around on a longer route with a flat trail. I'd usually go up the embankment, but I didn't have a top for the water bottle I caught the tadpoles with, and I didn't want to risk slipping and spilling them out and killing them. I had never walked the longer trail by myself, but I had with my dad and felt confident I would find my way back to camp on it. As I walked back to camp, I had my head down looking for arrowheads in the washed out areas of the trail. I started feeling very creeped out as I continued walking. We all know that feeling, like someone is watching you. It was very unsettling, but I chalked it up to just getting scared being on the trail by myself. Now, the next part, I can't explain. It's as if a light switch was turned on or someone snapped their fingers and I came back to reality. Except when I came to, I wasn't on the trail I had been on before. I was near the railroad tracks and it was completely dark. My mom was standing in front of me, shaking my shoulders and yelling, "Where were you?" 2 things I remember really clearly about the moment that I came to. The look of fear, anger, and relief in my mom's tearful eyes as she was yelling at me, and my confusion I felt about what the hell was going on. The last thing I remember was walking on the trail back to camp. And now suddenly, it was dark, and I was on the railroad tracks leading to the ranch, which was over 2 miles away. The best way I can describe it is to compare it to the movie The Butterfly Effect. The main character would be living in one moment, then suddenly he'd wake up somewhere entirely different. My parents drove me back to camp, and I learned it was 10:30 p.m. That meant I had been gone for 11 hours, about 10 and a half of which I can't remember to this day. My parents and my family had understandably freaked the fuck out when I hadn't returned to camp. They had been looking for me all day. I was a really good kid growing up and almost never broke rules, so my parents were baffled by my behavior. I tried to explain them that I had no memory of getting on the tracks, but they didn't believe me. They thought maybe I got lost and was embarrassed to admit it. This was the only time I've ever experienced something like this. I can't explain how unsettling it is to not be able to account for hours that I was missing. Was it a coincidence that I had been creeped out feeling on the trail and then I lost 10 and a half hours of my life? I wish I had answers for what happened. Has anyone had anything similar happen? that seems like that should be posted in like the glitch in the Matrix, because like that is so strange. That is bizarre. I got goosebumps reading that. That was just very weird. I hate the idea of missing time, of like, you know that you're walking on a trail and then all of a sudden you wake up and you're nowhere where you thought you were and you weren't even sleeping. Like something just happened. It's like you were abducted and then placed on the railroad tracks. 10.5 hours later, you come to and your parents are like, what the fuck? Where were you? Where were you? That is so bizarre. Thank you so much for reading that. That is very, very weird. And I definitely do believe in parallel universes and alternate dimensions and all of that. So I do think that that is really creepy and that is so terrifying. Holy crap. Thank you so much again for allowing me to read it. So I have one more that I want to read. I want to try to make my videos just slightly longer than usual. So this is from the Paranormal Encounter section. It is from the Reddit author Pop Irator, and it's titled, People Saw My Doppelganger on a Road That Goes Through a Forest. I never really discussed this because it creeps me out, but I remember it from time to time. This happened years ago. I was in a very long distance relationship. Every other week, I went to my ex's hometown and I stayed there for a weekend. It was about a 2-hour trip to get to the town station and another 2 hours to walk by foot to get to his house. 15 minutes if you go by car, which wasn't always available. His hometown is a province surrounded by thick forests. It's a long walk just to get to the stores for food and establishments. I usually had to walk on the road meant for vehicles that cut through the forest. A lot of times, I got to the hometown late, so I'm usually walking in pitch black areas around 8 at night with just a flashlight for 2 hours to get to his place. At this hours, no cars drive by. It was a very quiet town. It was so eerie when I'm walking for a long time in the woods. There was a lot of parts of the woods that are completely silent. Not even sounds of bugs or birds. Just the footsteps. Those were the times when I felt like I was being watched. But I never turned around in fear that I might see something. After maybe a few weekends of me doing this and staying there was a weekend when a car was available. My ex took me to the station and we parted ways there. When I got home, he called me and he said his relatives who were driving home that day had seen me walking the road by the forest. They had been discussing it before he called me because they were scolding him for making me walk to the station alone late at night. He explained to them that he drove me to the station, that there was no way I was in the forest since I was already home. I asked if they were sure it was me or just someone who looked like me, but they perfectly described what I was wearing. They haven't seen me at all during that weekend, so there was no way they could have known what I was even wearing. To add, his relatives are not the type to joke about stuff like this. Until now, I still don't know how to explain it. It still creeps me out knowing that there was something who copied my appearance. I eventually broke up with my ex and I realized how much I despised his hometown. The air there feels heavy and depressing. He also said the same thing back then. I don't really know anything about doppelgangers and I'm still skeptical about them, but this really makes me question what I believe in. I had a previous incident back then too with my friend. All of us were walking down the stairs in school. We went to the bathroom and found one of us missing. We were asking each other where she was because we were just talking to her when we were walking. My friend showed up in the bathroom complaining that we didn't wait for her and she was left in the classroom while getting her stuff. We thought she was messing with us. We were literally talking to her before she just disappeared. But a lot of other people have vouched that she was actually in the classroom with them, and they left the classroom together with her before she looked for us in the bathroom. Oh my God, that's so creepy. So I don't really like the idea of doppelgangers. I know that there are a phenomenon and people do experience doppelgangers quite a bit, but the idea of them is so fucking creepy. And the fact that your ex's family told you exactly what you were wearing, but they hadn't actually seen you that day is so weird. I hate that so much. Oh my God, that is so fucking creepy. So I will try to make the next video to be about the 30-minute mark. I know I want to try to make longer videos and we're only at about the 20-minute mark right now, but they are being very loud outside and I need to go and look for more stories to read for you guys, but I don't have another creepy backwoods story that I want to read. So I will look for more of those and I will look for more true paranormal stories for you guys because I know you guys like the true ones. But thank you so much for watching this video. If you guys did make it to the end of the video, please leave me your favorite nature emoji down in my comment section below because this is a video that is all catered around the woods and the spookiness of animals. You can also leave me a spooky animal in the comment section down below. Leaving a comment helps boost my video on the algorithm. It also helps let YouTube know that you guys are actually engaging with my content and actually enjoying my content. So please like, share, comment, do anything that you guys possibly can to get my video seen on YouTube, because I am having a hard time getting views lately because YouTube changed something and all of my YouTube friends are feeling it, where our videos are just not being promoted or YouTube is not recommending our videos to our audiences. I don't know what's going on. I did post on my community tab asking you guys if you guys are being recommended my videos, and an alarming amount of you said you hadn't seen anything from me in months. And that is so heartbreaking because I try so hard to produce content that you guys will want to watch, and I spend hours and hours and hours making videos for you guys, and the fact that YouTube is just not promoting me breaks my heart. So if you guys are enjoying my content, please feel free to share it around, please like it, please comment, do anything possible to let YouTube know that I am a worthwhile creator and they should be promoting my stuff. But if you guys have any scary stories that you want to share with me that you want me to read on the channel, please feel free to message me either on Instagram, or you can message me over my email and I will get to all of your guys' personalized stories as soon as possible. I will be reading some more fictional ones in the next couple of videos, but stay tuned for more creepy true stories as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys at the next video. Bye.